that would kind of give you a little bit more to go over there and to get some national exposure.
Yeah.
I think, you know, and this is, I don't know if this is even possible, but instead of going the legal angle, maybe the thing to do is to go the angle, where you try to reach out to your ex-wife and say, look,
wait a minute.
keep the
Not an
kids, but I
ex-wife.
want to be able to see
Here's
them.
the problem. Not an ex-wife. Right?
Correct. It's not.
Not an
not
ex-wife.
technically.
See, well, you'd think it would be.
I could reach out to a lawyer who's in the U.S., in Massachusetts.
In Massachusetts, you are not divorced, even though you file for divorce proceedings. Technically, you're not divorced.
Right. The divorce proceedings are scheduled for September of this year.
Years later.
So how about if you did something like this now, and this may not really make any sense at all, but maybe you say that you reach out to the lawyer and you say something like, I will give up my custodial facility in exchange for the right to see them regularly. So in other words, you kind of drop the fight and kind of work out a sub-arrangement way, so at least you can see them.
There's a psychiatric history in her family, which is why I asked for custody.
Yeah, okay.
So
there
it's
are other
messy.
issues. Yeah, there's other
Yeah,
issues.
there's other issues.
But in the meantime, those issues that you were fearful of, for this, you're talking about the well-being of your children, right?
Yeah.
In an environment that would be not
Safe.
and it's safe. But they've been in that environment for 5 years.
I hired a child psychologist who specializes in trauma, and she said until they hit puberty, they should be safe. So she's been advising me about it's going to be dangerous for them based on the history of that family and the uncles that are raising the girls. And she said, get them out soon now. It's the first 4 years, they were young enough, they were small, 2, 3 years old, they were okay, but now it's getting more concerning.
Critical.
Yeah.
You know, there was a difficult time. They just returned that Jessica girl, didn't they, to the family in Connecticut? And this is bureaucracy at its worst. You know, you know that case there, right?
Right.
And
Pelletier
this
girl.
still not, you know, it has some ring to it, and that here you have kids who could be in an environment not in their best interest, and nobody's doing anything about it. The State Department's not doing anything about it. John Kerry, the Secretary of State from the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, who, by the way, is supposed to be empathetic toward folks like you. What's happening?
Too bad somebody who is a resident, somebody who's a citizen of Spain couldn't file charges against her for something. Because you said they can file against anybody, right?
They could, yeah.
What could happen?
Maybe
That's interesting.
get them into the system and then
Well,
you
that's
get...
kind of what I was hoping, was to let them know. So I'm going to reach out in Spanish also. Because she didn't speak. That was the problem. That's why she was a permanent resident, not a
Do you
citizen.
speak Spanish?
Yeah.
Have you gone to the Spanish consulate?
Yeah. They're
And are they sympathetic?
They're worse as far as sexism. In other words,
Let me hear that. You use the word sexism.
that they do not believe in fathers' rights to the
Okay.
children.
It's
Is that a
interesting.
problem everywhere?
War against men.
I don't know.
You must be a Republican.
I'm not.
Well,
Unenrolled.
Republicans are war against women.
What's the difference between a Republican and a Democrat anyway these days? Nothing.
Getting to be that way. Getting to be that someone that has a reasonable claim, that has
Right.
children,
Right.
can't see their children,
Unless
separated from their children.
you got actions with the party bosses, right?
Is that what you're telling me?
Yes.
Is that what his case is down to?
Yeah. Well, again, I think that best bet would be to try to get some national exposure to something like this. I mean, if you can get somebody to hear your case that gets kind of national exposure, people want to rally to your support and that kind of stuff. And that's what I've seen happen on Fox News on a regular basis. So that might not be a bad thing.
But are these war stories common, Jonathan? I mean, you're dealing at an international level, but at a domestic, you know, it's the same situation, the sexism thing, isn't it?
I've met like 3 or 4 people in Lynn, fathers that are in the same situation, but you don't hear about it because it's part of they're not citizens of the U.S., they're immigrants to green cards. And
Really?
they're not able to see their kids in Central America, or one was from Nepal and can't see his children. And in some cases they were brought back to Central America, or some places they're here, but the woman went out of state and he's an immigrant, so he doesn't quite know how it works as far as a father.
Right.
How to get.
Probably doesn't have the resources.
Do you have to pay child support or any of those types of things?
She's supposed to be paying me.
She's supposed to be paying you,
Right.
but
I-
she's got the kid.
Because I have full custody, she's not allowed to see the children under the U.S. court order.
That doesn't really mean very much. I hate to tell you. I mean, what's happening right now is the U.S. courts have not trumped. You know, this is fascinating to me because there are so many folks that want to deal with the UN and international courts and stuff like that, and yet there's no equivalencies here.
Well, if I had millions of dollars, I guess I could avail myself of the courts
I see.
internationally.
So that's what you were saying, Paul. It comes down to
I'm afraid it does. And, you know, there's what a lot of people would understand this, I'm sure. The idea of having your child who you raise from an infant, all this gone from your life, you know, I mean, it's, you know, that's horrendous. I mean, it's forget about the legal process and all that kind of stuff. I mean, this really pulls at the heartstrings.
we've got about a minute left before we go to break. I'm sure we'll have a different topic, less complicated. Jonathan, I'd like to give you the time here. I'm sorry that. Is there anything you want to say out there? I mean, I don't know how to help you in any way, to be honest with you.
I just, if somebody sees them or somebody's in, and to just tell them that their father loves them, I don't know what people are telling them. I don't know. Everything I've sent has been returned. Every time I've tried to call, I've not been allowed to speak with them.
How
And
can
so-
people get in touch with you, by the way? Anybody who might have seen this, if we hear.
My daughter's names are Athena and Tanit, and I wrote a blog called Athena and Tanit, and Tanit spelled T-H-A-N-I-T, Tanit. Athena and Tanit.blogspot.com.
And what we'll
get
have,
that.
we'll have the producer put that out later on in the show, so that
Yeah.
it's out there, and we'll.
During break, we'll just go over and put that on. We'll put it up
Thank
for you. Jonathan, I'm very empathetic toward you, but I feel impotent.
Thank you for having me on.
Thank you for being here and sharing your story.
Best
Thank you, Paul.
We'll be back shortly.